Yesterday on my day off, I decided to try and get back on track for my yearly reading goal. And if you're wondering how I read 8 books in one day, it's because I compiled all of the shortest books I could find. I took the 3 shortest books with me and I headed over to a coffee shop in the morning. I started with Murder by Memory and I started around 9:50. This is a murder mystery. It's only 100 pages and it takes place on a spaceship in the future. And I had a fun time with it. It did not even take me an hour. I finished it at exactly 10:46. The next book I started is The Mistletoe Mystery. I was now 7 books behind schedule. I ended up starting this around 10:50. And I haven't been the biggest fan of the Maid series, but this was a fun, cozy mystery Christmas novella. It was only 100 pages. So I finished this around 11:40. The next book I started was Hardly Strangers, and I was now only 6 books behind schedule. I started this book around 11:45, and I read about halfway through it before I decided I had camped out at this coffee shop for long enough, and I decided to head home. I settled into my cozy reading chair, and I was really into this book. It takes place over the course of one night, and I really liked it. Highly recommend, but I ended up finishing it around 1:16. I was now 5 books behind schedule, and at 1:20, I started Everyone This Christmas Has a Secret, which I love this thriller series. Honestly, I've really been enjoying it, so I read this incredibly fast because I was having such a fun time with it. I finished it around 3:25. At this point, Goodreads was like, you're still 5 books behind schedule, and I was like, girl, what? But at 3:50, I started The Night Guest, and I had just had a little bit of lunch, and then I decided to make myself some tea. And because this was one of the first longer-ish books, I was like, oh, this will take me a little bit longer. Incorrect. It took me an hour to read this book, and this is because the chapters look like this. This book was insane, but I loved it, and I finished it at 4:50. Goodreads then overcorrected, and they were like, yeah, sorry, you are actually 3 books behind schedule now. And I was like, yeah, girl, thank you. 5:25, I started Guillotine, and I've had this pull-out sofa for a while, and I've never used it for reading, so I was like, the time is now. This book was chaos incarnate. I closed it when I finished it, and I was like, what did I just read? But I finished at 7:10, and that put me only 2 books behind schedule. The next book I started was Catalina, and I ended up reading it on my Kindle, and I started it at 7:45. To whoever recommended this book to me, I do not remember who did, but I just wanted to say thank you, because the writing of this book was beautiful, and I was infuriated and intrigued the entire time. I finished this book and took a deep breath, and that was around 9:55. And at this point, I was only 1 book behind schedule, so I started The City in Glass at 10:10. I'm going to be honest, I had no idea what this book was about. I saw the cover and I was like, yeah, I will read that. That looks amazing. And then I spent the entire book being both hopeful and heartbroken at the same time. So I also finished it right at midnight. And I was like, I'm going to call it. Because I was on track now. And I only had 1 book that I didn't read, which was Apples Dipped in Gold, but I will be reading it. And honestly, yeah, crazy, ambitious day, but I had such a fun time and I really liked all these books.